So on today's video, I'm going to answer a question: can Bitcoin be killed by governments or destroyed by its investors or third-party associates? So stay tuned to find out, and let's roll the camera. So I hope you're having a good day. This is me, Digital Digits, bringing a weekly video on Bitcoin. So before we start the channel, please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. This is the channel feed that you're gonna see when you're about to subscribe. Make sure you press the subscribe red button here, and also look at these other social media platforms where you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and also on Telegram. Yes, I have a Telegram group where you guys can join and chat about cryptocurrencies and what's going on. So let's start with the video. So on today's video, we'll be answering a question about how Bitcoin could be shut up by governments or by third-party associates. So there's an article that I have for you guys where crypto experts by name of Anonymous referred a way of how our governments could destroy Bitcoin in the near future. So this is a Forbes article. A guest interview crypto experts known by Anonymous. So his name is not made public. So this is what he has to say about how governments could compete with Bitcoin. So the article says the way for governments to kill Bitcoin is to compete with it. According to Anonymous, the most effective way for governments to kill Bitcoin would be to compete with it. The way for them to kill Bitcoin is for them to make an economic incentive to use Bitcoin irrelative to make the demand of using Bitcoin go away at the source. Explained Anonymous. They need to offer a technology that is better than Bitcoin, that can alleviate the need for Bitcoin, or at least they need to try. So Anonymous added that the best thing governments could do in regard to compete with Bitcoin is to return to the classical gold standard and allow for more freedom and privacy of individual financial activities. Yes, governments can't shut down Bitcoin or even try to ban it. They can try to ban it, but not all governments all around the world have the same ideologies for Bitcoin. Some governments will adopt Bitcoin, some governments won't. So this won't help other governments to ban Bitcoin or make it illegal. So the only way is to compete with Bitcoin so that the Bitcoin demand drives consumers to the government's other products. So this is a very complex topic, and it's hard for even governments to even think about how they could stop this digital scarce asset. So now there's another article that I have that explains the 51 attack. So, but before I go into the 51 attack, I'll show you guys a video of how the 51 attack works.
One of the key strengths of Bitcoin and blockchain technology is their distributed way of building and verifying data. The decentralized network of nodes ensures the protocol rules are being followed and that all participants agree on the current state of the blockchain. The proof-of-work consensus algorithm is what assures that miners are only able to validate a new block of transactions if the network nodes collectively agree on the validity of that block. A miner's performance is based on the amount of computational power they have, and this is usually referred to as hash rate or hashing power. The mining power is distributed over different nodes across the world, which means it is not in the hands of a single entity. At least it is not supposed to be. But what happens when the hash rate is no longer distributed well enough? What happens if one single entity is able to obtain more than 50% of the hashing power? One possible consequence of that is what we call a 51% attack, also known as a majority attack. A 51% attack is a potential attack on a blockchain network where a single entity or organization is able to control the majority of the hash rate, potentially causing a network disruption. In such a scenario, the attacker would have enough mining power to intentionally exclude or modify the ordering of transactions. They could also reverse transactions they made while being in control, leading to a double spending problem. A successful majority attack could also allow the attacker to prevent some or all transactions from being confirmed, or to prevent miners from mining, resulting in what is known as mining monopoly. On the other hand, a majority attack would not allow the attacker to reverse transactions from other users, nor to prevent transactions from being created and broadcasted to the network. Changing the block's reward, creating coins out of thin air, or stealing coins that never belonged to the attacker are also not possible. How likely is a 51% attack? Since a blockchain is maintained by a distributed network of nodes, all participants cooperate in the process of reaching consensus. The bigger the network, the stronger the protection against attacks and data corruption, and that is why Bitcoin is considered the most secure blockchain. Several early miners joined the Bitcoin network to contribute to its growth and security. With the rising price of Bitcoin as a currency, new miners entered the system aiming to compete for the block rewards. Such a competitive scenario is one of the reasons why Bitcoin is secure. Miners have no incentive to invest large amounts of resources if it is not acting honestly and striving to receive the block reward. Therefore, a 51% attack on Bitcoin is rather unlikely due to the magnitude of the network. Once a blockchain grows large enough, the likelihood of a single person or group obtaining enough computing power to overwhelm all the other participants rapidly drops to very low levels. Also, changing previously confirmed blocks gets more and more difficult as the chain grows, because the blocks are linked and it is only possible to change a certain block if all subsequent confirmed blocks are discarded. For the same reason, the more confirmations a block have, the higher the costs for altering or reverting transactions therein. Hence, a successful attack would probably only be able to modify the transactions of a few recent blocks for a short period of time. And even if a malicious entity is not motivated by profits and manages to successfully perform a 51% attack, the Bitcoin protocol would be quickly adapted as a response. As the biggest blockchain network, Bitcoin is very resilient to attacks and is considered the most secure and reliable cryptocurrency. To learn more about cryptocurrencies and the technologies behind them, don't forget to watch our other videos at Binance Academy.
So that was a brief explanation of what the 51 attack would imply to the Bitcoin network. So this is one attempt which governments could try to stop the Bitcoin network from performing, but hypothetically this could I won't see this happening anytime soon, or even happening in the near future, because if governments attempt to do this, this will cost them a lot of money, and it could devalue the currency if they even attempted to do this. So it will be irregular for even entities or persons to even attack the Bitcoin network, because the Bitcoin network is so advanced at this time. Hash rates are at all-time highs. The network is stronger than ever throughout years. So it's irrelevant for this to happen. So now I'll show you a video of Max Kaiser. Max Kaiser is a Bitcoin maximalist, Bitcoin entrepreneur, and investor type of person. So here what he has to say about the Bitcoin being seized by governments or third-party entities, and how it could be shut down or not.
It's somebody saying, hey, all of you guys, let all these guys go at it. Let them just figure it out. Let them put it all together. Let them figure out all the mistakes. Let guys screw the whole thing up. And then 5 years, 10 years later, you know, the governments come over and take over, and they centralize them. They say, listen, guys, thank you so much for all your help, but now we're going to take it over. So is it really the people doing it, or there's some people more powerful than you and I that are behind this?
Right. So a couple of things there. First of all, the idea of taking over Bitcoin is you have to kind of dig into that and understand what those words are implying. So to take over, we'll get to that in a second. But let's go back to kind of in a broader context here. So who created it, you know, and why did they create it? The history of Bitcoin before the 2009 beginning of it, January 3rd of 2009. There's a 20-year history behind it of what are called the cypherpunks. And these are developers, programmers, hackers who were always trying to figure out what we call digital scarcity. And I myself have a patent on digital scarcity, US patent 5950176. It's the virtual specialist technology. That is a patent that covers digital scarcity, as well as it's the first commercial prediction market. So the prediction market industry was pretty much, I invented that in 1996. And digital scarcity is this idea that can you create assets digitally that are scarce in a world of the internet where everything is basically easily to replicate. You know, what we know about the internet is that it's very easy to copy things. That's what makes the internet the internet. You can send emails to 10,000 people at a click of a mouse because it's easy to copy everything. Yep. And you create scarcity, digital scarcity. And so I know from experience from my patent and my work at the Hollywood Stock Exchange, which I created in 1996. We eventually sold that to Cantor Fitzgerald in 2001. But I know from my work in this space, the difficulty it was to come up with a decentralized digital scarcity, which is what Bitcoin accomplishes. Unlike every other attempt is a centralized digital scarcity, and that's not the same thing. So that's the first point. The second point, in terms of can it be taken over, the fact is that the Bitcoin network runs at 120 quintillion calculations per second right now. To give you an idea of how big a number that is, if you were to add up every grain of sand on every beach in the world, it's about 7 quintillion. So Bitcoin's running at 120 quintillion calculations per second. It's the biggest distributed computer network ever in history. And the cost of taking it over is beyond the reach of any government. And it's beyond the reach of any group of governments. There is no entity or group of entities that have the computer power or the money to attack Bitcoin in any meaningful way, which makes it indestructible, immutable, uncensorable, and unconfiscatable as well, which is an attribute that a lot of people are waking up to, because it's not the same with gold. Gold is not unconfiscatable, and certainly fiat money is not unconfiscatable either. So there is no attack vector coming from a government. There's no attack vector coming from a group of governments. And I would say that I don't see any attack vector coming from anywhere at this point. Bitcoin is on a journey to much higher prices and changing the global economy in a profound way that we're all kind of waking up to right now.
So that's what Max Kaiser had to say about how governments cannot stop Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is fundamentally censorship resistance and robust in the sense that no entity or government could stop Bitcoin. So this is going to be it for today's video. But before I go, here's another video where a crypto expert suggested how governments can't stop Bitcoin from ever reaching mass adoption, and how Bitcoin is likely not to ever be killed or destroyed by any governments or entity.
I don't know what the biggest danger to Bitcoin is at this point. It's not. The thing is that, you know, you can say, well, what if the cryptography breaks, right? Well, they can switch to another algorithm, right? We can agree on a new cryptographic algorithm for doing what Bitcoin does already. You know, some people kind of say, oh, there's a possible quantum computing attack. Well, for starters, that's a theoretical attack. But I think people will be surprised to learn that we actually have cryptographic algorithms now that resist quantum computing attacks. So we've got a theoretical quantum computing attack, and it's already been addressed by some of the emerging cipher algorithms that are coming out right now. So even the quantum computing argument is dead at this point. There's an argument that if you take more than 50% of the mining power, you could destroy the currency. Well, yeah, but you know, the mining network on Bitcoin is the largest supercomputer in the world. Like, no one entity could possibly generate enough mining power to overpower that network. It's just not possible. And so that argument's out. There's a paper that came out recently that had a theoretical attack that would be more like 20 to 30% of the Bitcoin network or something like that. That paper's kind of been, you know, dismissed as mostly theoretical. And even then, you still need 20 to 30% of the Bitcoin network. I mean, that's pretty insane. I mean, that's kind of impossible. You know, there's an argument that governments could make Bitcoin illegal. But how can you make Bitcoin illegal? I mean, it's not possible. I mean, you can drive it underground, but you know, with a private key, with Bitcoin, you could take $1 billion, put it on a single private key. Actually, it doesn't even have to be a private key. It can be a brain wallet. It can be a password that you memorize in your head. And you can then go to another country and type out that password that you've memorized and pull out $1 billion worth of Bitcoins on the other side of the world. You know, you could take a private key and you could embed it into a picture of a cat and then put it on a USB drive the size of your pinky and take it through customs. And they could take it and they could open it up and look at it. Oh, it's a picture of a cat. He's cute. He's like playing with a piece of yarn or something, right? But it has $1 billion key in it, you know? I don't think it's possible to stop Bitcoin at this point. I actually don't. I can't think of a single thing that could destroy Bitcoin at this point. And I'm not saying that just because I'm kind of, invested in Bitcoin's future. I'm a very honest person. If something's wrong with a system, I'll tell you what's wrong with it, even if I support and use that system. But I can't think of a single threat to Bitcoin at this point. I really can't. I mean, I guess Bitcoin could fall in value if a lot of people decide that they're not interested in Bitcoin anymore. But it's not. Look at how much money is in gold, and nobody uses gold for anything. Like gold is not used. Have you ever seen a gold coin in your life, right? Like, and it still has a ton of money behind it, without being almost useless as a real currency. So if Bitcoin becomes 5% of gold, a Bitcoin will be worth like $30,000 or something. I'm kind of pulling the number out of my ass, but like, the value of Bitcoin could fall, right? But does that destroy Bitcoin? Does that stop what Bitcoin represents? There's some theory, there's some denial of service attack theories about Bitcoin, which they've solved by making it so you can't just dump junk transfers into Bitcoin without paying a fee. So there's everything that could possibly stop Bitcoin at this point has been addressed and resolved. Cryptologists and hackers have just beat the hell out of Bitcoin to try to figure out a way for them to break it. Because obviously if you break Bitcoin, that's some serious street cred. That's like the ultimate like street cred for like a hacker or cryptologist. They've not been able to do it. And there's just nothing that can break Bitcoin at this point. I mean, it's really, I've heard another theory that like, somebody might, secretly control a bunch of the Bitcoins. There's all these kind of weird conspiracy theories too that I get. Like, the FBI secretly is Satoshi, right? The guy that made Bitcoin is Satoshi. And they're going to, one day wake up and be like, oh, that was us. And then they'll have 20% of all the Bitcoins in production. But again, it's a conspiracy theory. There's no evidence to suggest that. And honestly, like even if that was true, I mean, like so what? It's still so the government becomes a bigger investor in Bitcoin, right? Like, does that break the currency? Does that make Bitcoin useless? Like, it doesn't break Bitcoin at all. And if there was some kind of like ownership problem with Bitcoin and people said, oh, I don't trust the people that own Bitcoins anymore. I don't, you could create another cryptocurrency and use that. So there's really absolutely nothing that can stop Bitcoin at this point. I can't think of a single thing.